That's a really tricky question. That's a great question. I'm really glad you asked me that. Do you use these phrases quite a lot in the IELTS test or when you're speaking English in general? You might be using them a bit too much. Let's identify the problem and what you can do about this. Hi, my name's Nick, and for all things IELTS, make sure you follow my channel. So the problem here is that most students think that silence means failure, that silence is bad. It's not necessarily. It depends on the situation and it depends on what you do with it. Now, in the IELTS test, you are expected to think. You're not expected to answer immediately. You can take a little bit of thinking time. By a little bit, I'm talking like a second or two, okay? But a second or two can give you a good amount of time to think of your answer. And these phrases like, that's a great question, or, well, I'd never really thought about that one before. The problem with these stock phrases or memorized phrases is that they don't really show your fluency. Even though they keep you speaking, the examiner has heard those phrases hundreds of times before. The problem with using these memorized phrases is that students tend to use 3 or 4 of them, one after the other, and then the answer to the question kind of gets lost. So instead of using these stock phrases, how about this? The examiner asks a question. The question is, do you think social media should be banned for under 16-year-olds? And instead of saying, well, that's a really tricky question, instead of that, maybe do this. Well, I suppose there are 2 sides to this question. So did you see there? I just had a 1 or 2 second pause. And that's fine. That's very natural. That's what we do in real life. And in that short space of time, do try to think, okay, what's my answer here? Do I agree with that? Do I strongly disagree with that? Or maybe I'll give a more of a 50-50 answer. Now, of course, you don't need to plan out your whole answer in that 1 or 2 seconds. That's not possible, right? But it does give you a moment to think, okay, how am I going to start this? Let's start with the positives. And then while you're speaking, you move on from there. So here's what I suggest as a great strategy for practicing this. Get your phone, pick some random part 3 questions, lots of different topics, and press record on your phone and then just choose a question. And don't start with one of these phrases like, that's a great question. I'd never thought of that before. Take a beat. Take a moment to think. What's my answer to this? And then give your answer. When you're finished, listen back, and I guarantee you that the beat in your head felt a lot longer than the beat you're listening to in the audio. Taking a beat, taking a moment to think is very natural, so try to include this in your speaking.